Perhaps the most underrated morph in Crested Geckos has to be the Emptyback. In this video, we're going to talk everything Emptyback and show you guys my projects and why I'm so excited about them.
Armed.
Yeah.
Were you really filming right now?
Yeah, you're ruining it.
Sorry.
What do you need?
I'm trying to call New Zealand really quick to figure it out.
Can you do that outside?
I thought we were going to figure that out together. I still don't have time to tell her.
I didn't even know you were talking to her right now.
Sorry, New Zealand's calling. Hold on.
We're going to do a little video with New Zealand breeders. Anyways. So the Emptyback morph is an incomplete dominant. Really cool because obviously in the super form you could see that it wipes out all the pattern inside the dorsal. It will actually also wipe out some of the pattern on the laterals, and it gives them this cool like highlighted pinstripe look. On this one here, this is a heterozygous Emptyback, which just means that it is not the super form. It just carries one copy of the gene. And you can see here that it still has some pattern on the dorsal, but it's starting to be broken up. There's still some cream that gets to seep in there, but if you breed two Emptybacks that look like this, you're gonna get a super Emptyback that is gonna look like this. Now, depending on the combos and what base color morph you put it with, you're gonna get different looks. Now the pinstripes keep it nice and solid. It's easy to tell an Emptyback that's a pinstripe because you could see obviously that anything that's inside of those two pinstripe scales is going to be basically the same color as the base, or just like a lighter or a darker color. It's really easy to tell with the pinstripes. But when it comes down to the Harlequins or some of the other animals that have Emptyback in there, it's really hard to tell. It becomes a problem if you're not sure what you're looking at. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to show you pinstripe Emptybacks, and I'm going to go through the different combinations that you could do with them. So like I stated now, this is a quad stripe super Emptyback. You can see she has the lateral lines here, one lateral line on this right side and another lateral line on her left side. Beautiful, just a very clean look. She's a little bit older, so there's still a lot of room to improve in terms of how crisp you want those patterns to look. This one is a heterozygous Emptyback, which just means that it's one copy of the gene. So you can see that the back is starting to go empty, but if I breed this to another Emptyback, you'll get some that are super Emptybacks. And this is just like a dark and cream animal with some Dalmatian spotting, which I personally love. I did want to show you guys some of the other Emptybacks that I have. This guy here, he is one of the super Emptyback males I have breeding. And you can see that it gives it a really cool look. It just like somebody erased the dorsal pattern all the way through, and you can see it has very minimal limb and lateral pattern with these guys. I personally love the dark bases, especially because, you know, it just makes those pinstripes pop even more. You could have yellow Emptybacks, you could have phantom Emptybacks, you could even have red Emptybacks. So there's a lot that we could do with this morph. Nobody has done it yet, but there could be a possibility of making a super Emptyback lily white that's gonna have all that crazy lily white pattern, but the dorsal will be completely wiped. And that's something we will be working with in the future, but we're obviously not there yet. Of making a super Emptyback lily white. So one of the most exciting Emptyback projects has to be the Super Emptyback Lily White. Now, I don't know if anybody has produced these up to this day. I don't think anybody has. I've never seen one. But what I have seen are a lot of Lily Whites that look like this. And this was the product of an Emptyback to a Lily White. So I think what's happening here is typically the Lily Whites have a pretty solid dorsal. But this guy here, you can see he has some of that pattern that goes through the back. And I think that's what the Emptyback is doing. So I'm very curious to see what a super Emptyback Lily White will look like. And this is going to be the key to doing that. So that is one of our super Emptyback males. This girl here is a whiteout Emptyback. If you look at her dorsal, this could be a super Emptyback, or it could just be a high expression Emptyback. But you could see on their sides here, she has that those whiteout markings that are just so pretty. and that super dark base color that just makes a whiteout pop even more. Now, one of the traits about the whiteouts is that it almost looks like it's separate to all the Harlequin markings. You can see she doesn't have any of that whiteout on her belly, but on her sides, it's just so bold. And that whiteout spreads over the dorsal also, but it's working against the Emptyback because it's trying to erase that. But this is one of my favorite Emptyback animals. She has really nice head structure, the overall contrast, and that whiteout just makes it really pop. And I think that's the future of Emptybacks, getting them with that thick white walls or even the lily whites. That's something that we haven't, you know, done the super form yet, but we want to do. So that's my whiteout Emptyback girl. Here is another super. This is a super Emptyback. This guy is a very good example of his morph. As you can see, there's barely any pattern inside that dorsal. There's some spotting here, but it works kind of like any other morph, you know. There's higher expression versions of supers. There's higher expression versions of the regular Emptybacks. So depending on what you're breeding for and how far you selectively breed them, you could actually get a completely wiped out dorsal. So this guy, he is actually paired up with this female here. She's actually a really old animal we've had that before I even knew what Emptyback was. You could see she has that super Emptyback dorsal as well. So the geckos I have here are two phantoms. Now, this is a regular phantom and this is an Emptyback phantom. And the reason I could tell is because if you look closely at her dorsal, there's a lot of, compared to this guy's dorsal, there's like, it looks like it's broken up, and that's what the Emptyback does. Inside that dorsal, you could see through to the base color of the gecko. I know it's a little bit hard with the phantoms because they almost have the same base color. That's what the Emptyback does. If you see this guy here, it's a solid color all around. But the girl here, she has, you know, the phantom coloration, obviously, or lack of markings, and then inside of that dorsal, it looks like it's broken up. That's what the Emptyback does. So I'm going to show you guys what happened when I bred these two guys together. Obviously, I get Emptybacks phantoms because they're both phantoms. Some are going to be Emptyback and some are not. But I also bred this guy last year to that older super Emptyback female I was telling you guys about, which is right here. So I had this group, and I want to show you guys what happens when you put this male, this phantom male, to this super Emptyback female, and this phantom male to this phantom Emptyback female. So these are the two babies that come from that group. This baby on my left hand comes from the super Emptyback female. As you can see, it is not a phantom, but it is het for phantom, so it carries the gene. And this little guy on my right finger is a phantom Emptyback, and I will show you why. The pattern going down the dorsal is broken up. It's not going to be as linear because that phantom girl has a lot of tiger influence. So when the animal has a lot of pinstripe influence, you're going to see that clean dorsal wipeout that goes from the top of the neck to the bottom of the tail. When there's a lot of tigering, it's going to be broken up a little bit more. When there's not that much pinstriping, it's going to be broken like it is on this baby right here. So what I have here is a red pinstripe that is a possible Emptyback. Now the reason why I say possible is because he does seem to look like an Emptyback, but if it is, it's a very low expression Emptyback. One of the telltale signs of Emptybacks is that peak that you see right here on the upper dorsal near the neck area, and obviously the dashing of like that base color coming through the dorsal. I say he's a possible Emptyback because I have produced what I think are super Emptybacks from him. That would mean that he has to be an Emptyback. If the other female was an Emptyback, they could both produce super Emptybacks. So that is why I think he's a possible low expression Emptyback. I just need to do a couple more breeding tests to make sure that he is indeed that, because I could have just hatched a really high expression Emptyback that looks like a super. I know it's confusing, but just try to follow along here with me. Now, to add on to that confusing nature of this morph, I did want to mention that the Emptybacks, as of right now, as it stands, it seems to be working with the super stripes as an epistasis gene. So this is something that I'm not very well brushed up on, but from talking to some other guys that understand the genetics very well, basically epistasis would mean that one gene needs the other one to be present for it to show itself. So if you don't have one gene, it can't show itself. The super stripes and Emptyback seem to be very similar, with the super stripes having a thinner line going down the dorsal and the Emptybacks that thinner line getting widespread and making the whole back look empty. We don't know right now. We still have to conduct a lot of experiments, a lot of breeding, different tests for us to figure out exactly what's going on with the super stripes and the Emptybacks. But we do know as of right now that the Emptybacks are an incomplete dominant, so it's very exciting that we can put them together with a bunch of new morphs, see the combinations we could make up, and we're gonna have a clearer vision of where we want to take our animals when we know how certain genes are working with each other. So super excited about that. I thought I'd show you guys a red possible low expression Emptyback. And I've had this guy for so many years, and just now I'm starting to realize that he is a het Emptyback. So super cool project. If you like these animals, make sure you follow with what's going on with our breeding projects here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, and we will be definitely updating you guys with these projects and showing you the babies that the other groups produce.